My name is Jim Savastio. I'm one of the pastors of the Reformed Baptist Church of Louisville. Welcome to our podcast, Reformation, today and tomorrow. We are joined again here with Pastor John Grevious. John is one of my pastors, one of the four pastors of the Reformed Baptist Church, and he's joined here with his wife of coming on 52 years, Venessa. And the first podcast, we talked a little bit about your background and how you came to hear the gospel and respond to the gospel. And we ended with the kind of the zeal of the new life and the putting off of sin. And people thought y'all were kind of crazy. Peter talks about that. You no longer ran in the same excess of dissipation, and they speak evil of you. Peter says, we're wondering why you don't party like you used to party, or drink like you used to drink, or whatever it was that you did. That was part of the old life. Scriptures obviously tell us anyone's in Christ, a new creation, old things have passed away, and new things have come. Yes. The Pastor John, well, you weren't Pastor John then, the John and Venessa that I met some years later. How long was it? So between the time you all came to, what year was it you came to faith in Christ?
I came between 77 and 78, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Right there.
I was about 6 months later.
Okay. One of the things very interesting about the eldership here, I think you and me and Charlie, and back when Bob was an elder, Bob, all of us were converted around the same time.
Wow.
So, Charlie and I were 15. No, I'm sorry, Charlie's a little bit later, but it was you and I were the same, and Bob. You and I and Bob were the same. That's what it was. So
Interesting.
Of course, I was only 14.
That's what I said.
At any rate, it's very interesting to see that how God works in different people's lives in different places, and later on they're going to meet up with each other. So,
Yes.
it was 20 years between the time the Lord saved you, basically, and when we met, because I think we met in 1996 or 1997. Yeah, no, we would have met in 96.
96
Because
it was 96.
We were still in the, when I first
McKendree.
met you, we were at McKendree College.
Yes.
In the 96.
And then we moved into this building in October of 96. So we would have met in 96. So tell me a little bit. Let's talk about those 19 years or so of growth in grace. You had some very interesting church experiences from stories I've heard. You eventually wound up in kind of a charismatic church. How did that happen? How did you get involved there?
Well, the church I was telling you, I was actually a deacon in the Baptist church at first, and we just felt like we needed more teaching. Okay. I told you, finally got to the point where they thought we was being self-righteous, because when me and her talked to Sunday schools, and we said, okay, kids, we're getting rid of these books. They had some little books that didn't really say much about the Bible, and said, once you get a Bible, we're gonna learn the Bible and stuff. And so actually the pastor of the church got offended by that, and some other things happened, but so we the first church meeting I went to, I thought it was gonna go into fisticuffs. So I said, something's not right here. And so that was one of the things. But we moved on, and we started looking for churches everywhere. So we went to I don't know how many Baptist churches, trying to find, somebody to open the Bible, tell us about family life and things like that, because we didn't know anything.
Right.
And so we come to a meeting in Shelbyville, and the guy that I was actually the assistant pastor with, he was preaching, and he's preaching solidly out of the Bible and everything, so we finally, I told Venessa, I said, well, I finally found somebody that's preaching the word of God. Well, open the Bible up, expand.
Yeah, so open the Bible, tell me what it says.
Tell me what it says, and he did that. And that's kind of how I got to that church. Now, in the meantime, I was doing a Bible study, and believe it or not, a lot of our family was in it, if you remember what it was. And I was doing a Bible study, and we started going to that church at the same time, but the Bible study was kind of waning away, And so I went to that church, and so he asked me would I preach once, and I did. And so after that, preaching once or a couple more times maybe, then he asked me to be assistant pastor.
Okay.
So he was a good man.
Do you remember your first sermon?
Yes.
What did you preach on?
I definitely remember. Has Satan cooled you off?
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
in the midst of the sermon, this guy stands up and he goes like, I know Satan. I'm going to tell y'all today about him and stuff like that. It was really fanatical. I remember that one.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Venessa, what was this transition like for you? You'd grown up in an African American church. This church in Shelbyville, I imagine, was mixed or largely a
mixed.
whiter
No,
congregation.
yeah, it was mixed.
And obviously, some of the doctrine was different. Style of worship was different. Was that hard for you all? Was it
No.
easy because you said, "Well, I just want the word, and I don't
Yeah.
care about this other stuff," or what was that like?
We just wanted to do what the Lord would have us do. So it wasn't hard to adjust. We adjusted pretty well. I made some really good friends and enjoyed being there.
What was it like for you? And here's this man you'd been praying for, writing letters to the Lord to, and all of a sudden now he's up there preaching the word. What was that like for you?
I hadn't really thought about it, but it was good. I'd rather see him living for the Lord than the other lifestyle.
Oh, yeah. Now, how old were your children at this time, John and how old were they when this transition and all of a sudden Dad's up there preaching?
I think when we went there, he was in the 2nd grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she might have been kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
So, John, you're still working for the phone company, and you're an associate pastor. What were your duties there at the church? What did you do?
Basically, you preach,
Preach.
and did some counseling and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, they're totally structured different,
Okay.
and just like we have 3 meetings here, like on Lord's Day, where they didn't have Sunday school,
Okay.
and we would meet once on Sunday and then once on Tuesday,
Okay.
and then have a prayer meeting. Was it on Thursday?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it was on Thursday, and then I had a Bible study in Frankfurt on Friday
Okay.
at the Holiday Inn and stuff like that.
Okay. I appreciate what you're saying about, and I think it's right for us to remember well people and places that the Lord's used in our life, even if we are perhaps no longer in agreement.
Yeah.
I think what happens sometimes to some folks, they make doctrinal transitions and they kind of dismiss everything that God used before in their life. But at some point, you all began to undergo some degree of doctrinal change. And began to be introduced, from what I remember, to some matters of Reformed theology. How did that come about? And
Well, at the church we was going to, we felt like that we needed more theology. Okay, because some things were a lot of testimonies and about faith and stuff like that. But we really, as far as I was concerned at the time, I needed to be grounded in the gospel. So, anything you believe as a Christian, to me, if it's not grounded in the gospel, then it's going to go off the deep end somewhere. You know what I mean? That's going to be the priority of what you do. So we were introduced to, I know what changed me was I was introduced to the book by Arthur Pink, The Sovereignty of God. Okay. And then that opened my eyes to a lot of stuff all at once, Okay. And the basic, it's a crazy thing. There was an older black man that went to that Baptist church that we went to, and he would always go to church there in the morning, and he would teach the kids in Sunday school, but he would never go to church, never come to church. So he sit me down and talk to me, and he would talk to me quite a bit, and he was a Landmark Baptist.
Okay.
And he's the first one I heard about predestination election.
Okay.
And so I'm rejecting it. No, it takes away your free will, and stuff like that. And he was saying, he said, I want to come and look at my library. I'll show you some books and stuff. And right then I wasn't interested. I'm more like,
Okay.
God save me. I don't need to know all that, and stuff. And, but that was the first time I'd heard it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
But
some
Arthur
years
Pink-
later, now you're reading. Did somebody give it to you? How did you come across
yeah,
Pink?
we had as the Faith Church, we had some books like Pink, and we knew Pink, and we knew some of Spurgeon, but a lot of people probably didn't read them.
Okay.
And so we came across Arthur Pink, and at the time we came across him, the seminary had a place down here called Theologue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember
Christian
that?
bookstore. Yeah. On
That's where we went.
Lexington Avenue. Yeah.
They told us about that. And so we went down there, and it was like going shopping at Bass Pro Shops. I mean, there was, you know what I mean? There was books,
Yeah.
all kind of good
We haven't
books.
even touched on that aspect of your life.
But it was great, and that's how we got a lot of books. Of course, Larry Dew and Robbie Workman, you know, and
So Larry Dew, Robbie Workman, former members of the of our church here. Larry's with the Lord now.
Yes. And
yeah, we're part of the work there in Shelbyville.
that's they basically are the reason why we found you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What impact, so did that theology have on you, and it maybe in your own personal life, your own walk with the Lord? And well, Denise maybe should ask first of all. So John's reading this book. He's coming, maybe telling you some stuff that maybe sounds. I mean, John's initial response was, "This a little bit crazy. This takes away, whatever it is, free will. We're not robots. We're not." Or did you read it as well at the same time? Or
I read some of it, but I've always thought, if we got under good teaching, that they wasn't going to lead us the wrong way. I know that's probably a dangerous way to live, but I had to trust
you
the pastors. And I did trust John, and I knew he wouldn't lead me in a way that would be wrong.
okay?
I trusted him that much. Excuse me. And it was a good book. We talked about it. He said either everything we believe was wrong, he said, or what we're reading is wrong. But he still researched it. But one book that really brought it home for me was Sin and Temptation.
Okay.
Yeah.
That John Owen.
By John Owen.
That's deep waters.
It's deep waters.
Had to have a dictionary as I was reading, but that's what the Lord used for me.
I know we're skipping through. There's a lot that goes on in all of these years. Now, my remembrance for you both was before I met you that you all had tried to start a church in Frankfurt.
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about that and what were foundationally, what was going to mark the life of that church? Or
Well, when we first started it, we had there's other people that had left this church because there were some problems in there, but it wasn't really a bad problem. Some people left, and so some of them lived in Frankfurt, so they came to the church in Frankfurt. But
and this where were you all meeting, in your home, or were you?
No, we was meeting in a building there in Frankfurt.
Okay.
And I started out teaching them what true salvation was.
Okay.
And got into matters like salvation is all by the grace of God through Christ, and things like that. Basically Reformed theology. And it went well for a little while, but there were some that thought I was deceiving them because we would talk you could lose your salvation, and and perseverance of stuff.
Right.
They didn't understand it right.
Well, some of what we've talked about recently here
Yes.
on assurance is that the
Exactly.
danger.
Yeah, they was
some people think that if you believe that, then
Yeah.
you live a loose life.
Yes.
Okay.
And because it was, the ethics were really good, but they could be legalistic. You could take ethics, make stuff legalistic, And so after we made the change, I had much more confidence that God loved me. I had much more confidence that he wasn't going to leave or forsake me. You know what I mean? And all the things that we hear, I saw that for the first time. Because see, up to that point, I was trying to earn my salvation in some ways.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I got to the point where, we kept changing. I said, well, how good do you have to be to please God? And then when I found out it's all through Christ, then the question is answered. only he could be good enough, you know what I mean, to please him and stuff like that. So I said, so that's what I had to do. So the church in Frankfurt went for a while, so it was getting weaker and weaker, and some people left and some people were leaving. And so I told him, I said, I tell you what, let's do this. I said, I want all of us, you know, the next few weeks, go out next Sundays, and let's just go out and see if we can find anybody that believes this. I'm talking about Reformed theology. And so Vanessa and I, we went to Lexington and went to some 5-point Calvinist churches, and they had 5 points, but I mean, they were dead, and so, you know, no family life, no anything, just 5 points. And anything they preached 5 points every day, you know, I mean, every Sunday that we went. So, you know, and I told her, I said, I don't know if we're going to ever find anybody that believes this. And that's when Larry and Robbie and them had come down. I think y'all was at a Holiday Inn or something when they first came.
I think I met Robbie for the first time at the Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
I can't remember if we met Larry and Trenda.
Larry
I
and
think Larry and Trenda we met. I'm pretty sure we met them for the first time. So a little bit of church history here real quickly. So we began our life together in the basement of a couple, Bob and Ginger Brown. We then moved to the Holiday Inn where the church was for, I think, 2 years, something like that. And then 4 years at a small business college called McKendree College. So if we talk about McKendree, and I haven't really told much of that story. It's really a striking thing how the Lord grew our church during that time. We had no advertisement. There's no internet. We didn't have a sign.
Yeah.
If anybody drove by, we didn't have a sign outside telling people the church was there. It was just, but anyway, somehow or other, through people talking and meeting and other things,
They knew, yeah.
we knew you. But I think we had met Robbie first. I'm pretty sure we met Robbie first. And if Robbie's listening to this, you can confirm, Robbie, that we had met. Maybe Carl even had come a time or two.
He may have at the time, or maybe Steve Shirk was with them.
That's right. Yes, he was.
Maybe.
So a couple of times at McKendree, and I mean at the Holiday Inn, and then more once you started going to McKendree.
Yeah.
So they encouraged you to come down here.
Yeah, they told us about it.
Okay.
So we hadn't come yet, but I told Vanessa, I said, I got a feeling that we're going to end up in this church in Louisville. Yeah, I just said that, you know. And so, you know, we had told the people to go out and look for a church. So me and her started praying. And so we prayed, Lord, okay, we'll go wherever he wants to go. Just don't let it be over 50 miles. So we got 37.
There you go. We
So-
pray specifically. You get some
Yeah.
specific answers sometimes.
Well, one of the things was about the church in Frankfurt was, and we have some friends that are in Lexington, they're Reformed, they just don't know it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The church, you know, they don't understand what they actually believe in, like we know what it is,
Yeah.
you know, but they really are Reformed. But so when we decided we was going to come here and the church dismantled in Frankfurt, the church that was in Shelbyville, we sent out tapes every month. You know, like as much as I would preach, mine would go out. She had to tape them on the old, what kind of tape player was that? The old reel that we had.
Cassette thing.
Yeah,
Okay, well, cassette, okay.
yeah, bring
Yeah.
cassettes out, you know. And so she had to send them out, you know, every month. And of course, our pastor, his went out. He had a ton too, you know. So, you know, I had been still sending those out. So I had to sit down, write a letter to each one of them that was on my tape list and tell them a lot of what I taught you was wrong.
Wow.
And after that, looked at the tape list. It was one guy that was left on the tape list. Remember the guy? He was in Washington. In fact, he was in Seattle, Washington. I think the one guy. And but I had to. My heart said I can't, because I don't believe the same. You know what I mean? I wasn't against them, but I was just I had to. I tell them. And so we found Joe.
So you first heard about RBC through people that were mutual friends. Do you recall your first Sunday?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Don't ask them what you taught on, but
Oh no, I'm not. I have no.
I can tell you. I remember
what?
Bitsy.
Yeah, Bitsy was here.
Yes, that's the first time
my sister-in-law.
Yes, and
Okay.
every time I see her, I said, "You're my Ebenezer stone." I said, because she was the first one. She was real nice to us. We ate over your house that day.
Well, it was the second Sunday.
Okay.
That was the second
Said-
Sunday.
But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, I remember her clear as a
Well,
bell.
so Vanessa, you said when you first met him in our first podcast year, you first met him, you thought that's going to be my husband.
Mm-hmm.
When I first met him, I thought that's going to be my pastor.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it might have been that second Sunday. I just had a strong sense. I thought they're going to be here, they're going to commit here, and he's going to be our pastor.
Wow.
So I don't know if I've ever told you that.
No,
So
send the rest.
yeah, so we quickly got to know each other.
Yeah.
So what was this transition like? I mean, what was it about coming here that made you more feel that you were okay? This is where we're going to be. Do you remember? Were there
You preached.
doctrinal things?
Yes,
Or
you preached the
people?
truth.
Yeah.
And I felt like you all lived it too.
Mm. So you were here, but John, this is my memory. Okay. We made the transition from McHenry College. We had this place built, so we had our first worship service here.
Yeah.
End of October 1996.
Mhm.
My memory is your first sermon here was here at this building.
It was.
Do you remember the circumstances of
Yes.
being asked to preach the first time?
Yes, I really remember.
What was that?
You were sick,
I was sick, right?
and you told me during lunchtime that I need to preach tonight. I'll never
I asked
forget
if you could preach that night. I had bronchitis or something. I think I managed to squeak out a sermon in the morning.
But yeah,
I was scheduled to preach at night.
yeah.
And I said, brother, do you have a sermon you could preach?
Yeah, I just happened to had been writing sermons just to
Yeah.
stay scooped up and everything, and that's why I had one. I wouldn't have one if it wasn't for that right
Oh,
there.
all right. Well, I thought you would have had like hundreds in reserve of things.
Well, I had some, but
Some
this
of those
this
maybe
one,
you-
but see, some of them I wouldn't preach no more. See,
Right.
see what I'm saying? And so yeah, I remember my heart was beating like crazy.
Yeah. Well, the Lord
Yeah.
used that sermon, and I think relatively quickly people recognized and realized that you were going to be a gift of Christ to the church here. Do you have a memory, John? I have a date in mind. I at least have a rough date in mind. Do you remember when you were set aside and ordained?
Not exactly, but it was.
Was it
I don't know.
98?
I'm thinking it's 98, but
98?
yeah.
Vanessa, does that sound
It wasn't
right?
past. It wasn't past 98.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's
I'm terrible at this. We have some folks in our church who are like, you keep better. We do need to keep better records, and I know it's written down somewhere, and I know
should've
that I
wrote it
could
down.
find it.
Yeah, I should have wrote down.
But yeah, I don't have it in
Yeah,
my
but I'm
head
pretty sure it's
as
91.
well as. So yeah, real quickly here, just to again a little filling in people on in history. When the church constituted, I was set aside as an elder,
Right.
with Bob Brown.
Mhm.
Bob and I were pastors together. Bob stepped down from the eldership somewhere. I want to say it's probably 94.
Mhm.
And so from 94 to 98, I was the sole pastor. And then Bob came back on the church.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah,
Brought Bob back in, and you. So we went from 2 to 1 to 3 elders during that time. So a great relief to me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
To have
yeah, you were doing everything. I remember that.
another elder here. Were there things that you had read about and now saw in the
Mhm.
life of a congregation, or were there things that seemed strange? Were there things that drew you? Do you remember what that was like when you?
Well, one of the main things are regular principle of worship, because we had been like in charismatic type worship, which I'm not knocking them, but I'm saying that me and her, we were saying like, I'd like to sing some hymns, because they're rich in what they're saying and stuff like that. And so that was, and the sobriety in worship and stuff like that, and the primacy of preaching, and I call this the primacy, but the primacy of Christ.
Supremacy of
Yes,
Christ.
and the primacy of He's
Yeah.
always, everything's based on Him. Regardless of what you preach it on, it comes right back to Him.
Well, John and Venessa, it's been great to have this conversation with you, and thank you for giving us insight into the past and into life together. We're going to take a break here, and then, John, there's a few things I want to maybe just the two of us talk about here for just a minute, if you've got time for this, a third podcast. Thank you for joining us at Reformation today and tomorrow.